us today, Mrs. Aishah Ahmad. Aishah Ahmad is the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. As Deputy Governor in charge of financial system stability, she is responsible for leading the effort to promote a sound financial system in Nigeria, one of the principal objects of the bank as specified within the CBN Act. In this role, Aisha is a member of the Governing Board and Committee of Governors of the CBN and the Chairman, Financial Institutions Training Center, FITC, a not-for-profit organization offering training, consulting, and research services for the financial services sector. Prior to her appointment at the CBN, Aisha was an executive director retail banking at Diamond Bank PLC, with over 22 years experience as a corporate executive and finance expert. Her banking and finance career spans several financial institutions, including Now Bank, Zenith Bank, and Stanbic IBTC, amongst others. Aisha's passion for finance, fueled by the attainment of several academic and professional qualifications over the years. She's a member of the Chartered Financial Analyst Association and Chartered Alternative Investment Analyst. And the CAIA Association. She also holds an MSc in Finance and Management from the Cranfield School of Management, UK. She's an MBA Finance from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. And she obtained a BSc in Accounting from the University of Abuja, Nigeria. Aisha Ahmad is a strong advocate for female and youth empowerment. She volunteers at SOS Children's Villages, Nigeria, and sits on the board of trustees of Women in Management, Business and Public Service, a leading women-focused sub-Saharan African organization. She is married and blessed with 2 sons. Ladies and gentlemen, can we make welcome Mrs. Aisha Ahmad?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Adefeko. I hope you can hear me, and I hope you can see me now.
Yes, we can.
You can?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay. If I have to repeat a question, it's because I can't really hear you in the room, but I'm glad you can. Mrs. Adefeko, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Let me formally congratulate you on the anniversary of your company, your 5th anniversary of 83 Resources as a leading marketing and strategic communications firm in Africa. But let me especially commend you and congratulate you for this 5-day boot camp that you have put together to enable other businesses, to rise, I think, and even maybe, I'm sure you hope, surpass where you are right now. You're giving back, not just to the small business sector, but to the Nigerian economy, and we commend you for that. If at any point I stop being audible, please, someone should kindly just send me a chat. Also, I'm not really able to see you and see your expressions, which is always good for such a communication, but I'll do the best that I can and hope that you're following me. I've been asked to talk about 5 personal nuggets for success in the context of this boot camp. And I have a few slides. Don't be scared. They're not very technical, very few, and they're just as a speaking guide. So I'm going to share my slides now. I think it's important to start from the very beginning, which is, the role of small businesses. I assume that everyone in the room is a small business of some kind or a medium-sized business of some kind. And if you aren't sort of in the mainstream, maybe being covered by mainstream media or having your company or its products featured online digitally and going viral, you may think that what you do is of no consequence, or that because of your size, you are not making an impact or a difference in the economy. I think it's important that you know that all over the world, small businesses are the heart of any economy. From the perspective of their size, in terms of their number, small businesses are more in number. From the perspective of their contribution to gross domestic product, which is a key measure, of economic growth, from the perspective of jobs. In the US, for instance, every time they're looking at the jobs report, they're looking at the small businesses and how they're doing. Over COVID, we recall how there was a lot of conversation about how they support small businesses to remain resilient, because the small businesses are the ones that easily can find jobs for people and they can easily fire people. I remember that in the US then, that was when they started this whole conversation about extending restaurants. So the restaurants were usually indoor. Only one or two had outdoor facilities. They started with these street outdoor facilities to enable the restaurants to continue to provide social distances, keep it in business, but more importantly, continue to retain the jobs of the people that work there. And also in sub-Saharan Africa in particular, small businesses are sort of the lifeblood. I think 70% of jobs in sub-Saharan Africa and emerging markets are generated by small businesses. As important as small businesses are, because of their structure, perhaps because of the fact that, in the first few years of such businesses, they are prone to not surviving. They usually find it very difficult to attract financing. And it's one of the areas that the CBN continues to look at to see how we can support small businesses across different sectors, agric, manufacturing, trade, to ensure they attract the capital that assists them. So you're very important, and I encourage you to continue whatever it is that you're doing, because you're contributing significantly to the economy. So let's go on to my 5 nuggets. So my first one is to envision a better world. Envisioning a better world, for me, I think is the crux of most entrepreneurship. What do entrepreneurs do? The reason why entrepreneurs set up their businesses is born out of looking around the environment, finding something that they don't think works well, or finding a gap and then seeking to fulfill that gap with their business, right? It is not the I better pass my neighbor version, which is that sometimes people set up businesses because their friend did, or that, that thing is making money. Usually a sustainable business is born out of a true problem or need that you see. I think Lagos is a good example of a hotbed of all sorts of entrepreneurial activity. When I worked in the banking sector and I lived there, it was just amazing to see everybody with their hustle. In those days in traffic, you will see anything from water. Understandably, if you're in traffic for many hours, people recognize there's a need that people may not have water in their car or cold drinks, to gala, to things like even artwork and Rolex watches. Anything you want, you can find in Go Slow, And for me, that is the biggest example of people that see a need. Okay, you don't have time to go shopping because, you're always on the commute. Maybe you can buy your baby's diaper in traffic. One of the funniest ones for me was always during the rainy season. So you know how Lagos streets used to flood a lot in those days. So you'd have these people carrying people on their back to cross the water. That is entrepreneurship activity. You have your shoes, you have your trousers, you don't want to get it wet. They have a service which is, I will back you and you not get your stuff wet. So that's entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs see a need and they select and they create their businesses to fulfill that need. The guy I have up front here is a guy called Blake Mykowski. You may remember these shoes. They're called Toms. I remember in my uni days, we used to wear a lot of them. I think just after our uni days, we used to wear a lot of them. They're very simple. They're very casual, but it was the time when they were all the rave. This guy goes on a trip. He was a serial entrepreneur in other areas. He went on a trip to Argentina. And that trip, he was actually forced to go on it because his family and friends had been telling him, you never take a break. You need to take a break at some point. So you must go on this trip. So he went on this trip and then he meets a lady that says she's on a shoe initiative. And he's like, or what's a shoe initiative? But then he didn't think too much about it. He tried to immerse himself into Argentina, its customs, polo, its drinks, and things like that. And then came across the fact that quite a number of children in Argentina actually were barefoot. And coupled with what the lady spoke to him about around her shoe initiative, he thought to himself, I can actually create a company that creates these fabulous, fancy, cool shoes, and that for every pair that one person buys, a free pair is given to a child. He saw a need. He envisioned a world, right, where everyone and every little child had their feet clad, and then created a business out of it. My second nugget is to know your why. And this know your why for me is at the heart of everything you do in life. And let me tell you why. So you may have envisioned a better world and then created a business out of it. But then you need to connect personally to why you're doing that business. Yes, you look around and you see a need, but why are you really doing this business? I'll give you an example for myself. When I was in the banking sector, banking has been a very, very challenging area for many people, particularly because of some of the long hours you're expected to work, some of the targets that you're given. Sometimes people think it's impossible targets. I think one of the things that really kept me going when I worked in banking was that it was something I truly loved. My why, my personal why for my life, beyond whatever industry I found myself, was to connect with people. I'm a very, very, I have a strong affinity for people. I get my energy from people. So to connect with people and to impact them in some way with whatever skills I have. So sometimes I would impact people with maybe the latest thing I read, the philosophy that I believe in, or what I'm skilled at. And what I'm really skilled at is finance. And so I saw an opportunity to provide my clients in the banking industry with the benefit of my personality, my skills in finance, you understand, and my commitment to that sector. So you need to have something that connects you with what you do. So you may have set up a clothing line. There must be an emotional attachment or a bigger goal that is personal to you, that fulfills you in setting up that clothing line. Or it could be a cosmetics business. It could be that the bigger thing you see is that you feel that there's beauty in everyone and that your cosmetics enhance and bring out the beauty in everyone. So the route to achieving your objective is the cosmetics business. But that's why is what will connect you and keep you going when the inevitable challenges come. The lady that was speaking before Mrs. Adefaka handed over to me was talking about challenges and how she was at a very, very tough time in her life, and she ended up, getting up and going for it. It is that your why that will keep you going. When you face the inevitable challenges you will face. It's not a very easy place in Nigeria to set up a business. Not only do you have to make sure you deal with the multiple agencies, you have to deal with finding good staff, you have to deal with not having infrastructure, you have to deal with being a small business and maybe not even having the resources you have to deliver. It is your why that would encourage you when those times come. I hope you can still hear me. Thank you. My third nugget is like three things in one, really, because Mr. Defeko only gave us 5 and I couldn't bring 8 or 10. So it's 3 things. I think the first one is to start. It's on its own. Start small is on its own, and then build with skill is on its own. And I will explain what I mean. You need to have faith to start. Some of us that, I don't know the generation in the room, but in my own generation, we were not really encouraged per se to be entrepreneurs. Our pathway was usually, just leave school, find a job. And then the local industries were not as diverse, is the word, as I would say now, in terms of some of the newer professions that come up that allow you to work for yourself and do those jobs or provide those services, So for people like us, sometimes starting a business is like something so esoteric, like, wow, you have a lot of liver, you're going out by yourself. Really? I think you're going to be able to earn enough to pay all your, needs and your kids' school fees and all of that, And that's why I sort of celebrate a lot women like Mr. Defeko that, had a distinguished career, long career in formal sectors and then went out to entrepreneurship, because the truth is that over the years, that strong anchor you have from getting a salary every day, every month, can be really powerful. And when you don't have that, it can be really scary. So you first of all need to have the courage to start. So maybe for you guys in the room, the courage was easy. The next thing is to start small. And that one is important. Why I'm saying so is that sometimes we feel that we want to start a business. This business has to be really, really big. I have to have minimum 15 staff. I have to have an office for myself. I have to have the whole gamut of office equipment. I have to have an official car, all of that. The truth of the matter is that once you have offered a service and somebody has paid for that service, you are in business. Whether you have an office, you don't have an office, whether you are the only staff or you're not the only staff, what is business? It is creating value. And once you've created value and you've been able to get that business to get more value, more returns than the cost it was to provide that service, you are in business. And so start small, right? So don't let that whole image of, I don't have an office. Some people started their businesses from their garages. We have many fascinating stories of how places like Facebook were started in a dorm room. Something like Apple that we all can't get enough of was started in a garage, and all of that. You don't need the perfect circumstances to start. Start small. But the last bit is very important. Build with scale. What I mean by build with scale is you're starting small, but you are envisioning a global company. You're starting small, but you're putting in global international standards. You're starting small, but you're benchmarking yourself with the best in your industry. In those days when I was in banking, I was a private banker. There wasn't really anything like a school for private bankers. First of all, I benchmarked myself to the biggest private banks in the world. And I wanted to be like those people that work in the biggest private banks in the world. And I approached my clients like I worked for the biggest private banks in the world. And it was so professional, and in the way I structured my engagements, and in the things I read, and the things I told them, I did like I worked in the best private bank in the world. And by doing that, I benchmarked myself to those people. And by doing that, even if I say so myself, I think I was one of the best we had in this country in terms of the way I did my work. Your company can be small. Your company can be just you. Your company can be on your dining table. But that doesn't mean you do not have global standards. And the reason why it's good for you to build with scale in mind is you put in the structures, you determine what your corporate culture will be. It could still be just you, the only staff. You should have a corporate culture. In corporate culture, you make sure that your accounting systems are in place, your front office systems are in place, your billing for your customers, your delivery for your customers, your after-sales activity. Every single thing should be structured like you're a billion-dollar company. And when you do that, usually you end up being a billion-dollar company. Now, what tends to happen when you just put a mishmash together? You don't look at taxes, you don't look like local regulations, you don't look like regulatory requirements, is that you then put your business at risk. When you've grown your business, when you cannot afford any reputational damage, when you cannot afford to lose money because you have bigger clients, that is when you then start falling apart if you haven't put the structures in place. A good example of a founder, that did something like this is Mr. Foladiola and GT Bank. Because right from when GT Bank started, before it became one of the biggest banks in the country, GT Bank saw a need. From their perspective, they saw a need that was still the days of long queues in banks, tally number. I'm sure some of you saw those ads where somebody would say they're going to the bank, they'll carry their mats and they're ready to sleep there. They saw a need that banking could be better, that with technology they could serve their clients better. And really they had an ethos of service. Right? And they thought that service would be the key differentiator for their strategy. They didn't ever say that they would be very large, but they did it anyway. And today they're that large. So that's my third nugget. Just to recap, my first nugget was what? Envision a better world. I can't hear you, but I hope you are repeating.
Envision a better world.
Yes, my second nugget was know your why. And my third nugget that has 3 in 1 is
start small but build with
scale. Thank you. So my next nugget is about relationships. Now, we've been sold a dud when it comes to relationship. What I mean by that is that depending on the people that are positive about relationships and networking and people that are negative about relations and networking, I think they sold us a dud. Those that are positive about it say that, networks are very good, so that you can advance your own cause, you can get up there, you can get access, when you have influential people on your network, you are going places, you are in the in crowd and all of that. And I'll tell you a reason why it's a dud. Those that are negative about it say that, okay, who you know is not a very fair structure. Why must it be based on who you know? Why must things be based on who you know? Why can't people just take you for your talent? Okay, the first one is a dot because networking is not really about what you can get from people. I said to you that one of my biggest strengths is relationships, is people. And I think I know a little bit about that. And I found out that the most satisfying part of building relationships is building relationships. The most satisfying part about building relationships for me is building relationships. So it's not network. I just repeated myself. And I repeated myself because it's that important. You don't know how many times I have been so fulfilled because I can connect 2 people that are in my network together to do something that is good for the world. And of course, good for them at the end of the day. For me, networking is not about how many people you have on your, in those days it used to be Rolodex. I'm sure many of you will know what that is today, on your contact list. It is about how many people have you connected? In how many groups are you the node and the connector in that group? And these groups are not like WhatsApp groups or even identifiable groups. But when you sit back and you look at your life and you look at the people you know, what have you done to enable the people in your life? Networking is actually about giving. Give working, call it that. And usually what tends to happen when you give work, it is that you end up being very, very successful. So you trust that if you can connect people, if you can give to your networks and give to the ecosystem, that giving will come back to you because you have created a world where other people do the same. And when people also know what you do, and by you being the best at it, because you would have built with skill, built with standard, built with professionalism, no way things will not come back to you. And everybody's happy about it. Now, there's one thing I have to say about networks. Many people don't really think about themselves when they're talking about a network. They're outwardly thinking. Mr. Defeko, please, if I'm running out of time, do let me know. So, they're outward. They're thinking outward. They're thinking about, how many people can I see at this event? How many business cards can I get? In fact, when they see someone and talking to the person, they can barely wait for the person to shut up. They say, okay, give me your card. Thank you. I want to move on to the next person. It is about also what you bring and how you show up. How can you attract the kind of talent, for example, that you want? Because when you look at network, people look at it very narrowly. It's about the external world. It's about people that would come and be potential clients to my business and potential referrers to our business. But network is also part of your friends, your family, your staff. And that's why I say you in networking is a very, very important aspect. Are you the kind of person someone wants to work for? Because for you to build a global billion-dollar company, you can't do it by yourself. So in networking, you really need to look inwards and determine who are you? Who do you want to be as a person, as a business? What are your values? And I talked about that before, about building with scale, finding a culture for the organization and establishing that culture so that as people come and join you, they come into that culture. It's about, because people work with, are friends with, work for, buy from people that share their own values. They will not want to be attached to a person or to a business that does not share their values. So I have a gentleman in front of you. He's a lawyer. And I think he's the best, Mr. Oyebode is the best example of someone that has leveraged networks and relationships to build his business, but has even gone further with it. Which speaks to the point I said about, it's not really just about your business, it's about your life. So Oyebode has since gone on to, I don't think he's chairman of Alukan Oyebode anymore. He's gone on to do so many other things in philanthropy, in different industries, banking, in not-for-profit. He's particularly excited about education. He's a patron of the arts. And, you just see his network and how he gives and gives to his network. And invariably, he's always the one, well, not always, but usually the one called upon to also participate. And that's a fantastic example. So you may be a small business, but there's still a lot you can do to give back. Look at 83 Resources. It's it's a relatively small business, although they have a fancy new office now in the highbrow part of Lagos. But you can classify it as a small business. They're doing this boot camp. I don't think anyone paid for it. It was free. That's giving back. And with everyone in the room here, there are potential opportunities for 83 to partner with you and to be part of your own success story. So that's my fourth nugget. My fifth and final nugget is also a 3-in-1 because I never, stay within the rules. Dare to dream big is by itself. Keeping faith is by itself. And persisting is by itself. Dare to dream big, keep faith, and persist. And they're all interrelated. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. Daring to dream big is around your business. Remember I told you, you may be small, but you're powerful. You are the heart of the economy. But do you want to remain small? What are your goals? What are your dreams? Who are you benchmarking? I have a friend of mine. Her name is Aishah. When it comes to courage and goals, she's somebody that I admire a lot. She had a career in investment banking, and at 40, she decided, there's something missing. I need to do something different. And she decided to go. First of all, she went back to school. She went to business school and set up a cosmetics company from scratch. She didn't base here. She went as an outsider to the US and set up that company. And it's called Bossy Cosmetics. And I've seen that company grow from strength to strength. Seen it featured on Oprah, seen it featured on some of the biggest stores in the US, like Sephora and all of these places. And I couldn't be prouder of her. If she set up her company and felt, well, I'm small, let me just sell to Nigeria, or let me just sell in Africa. She wants to sell globally. That's dreaming big. So for your own business, first of all, who are you benchmarking? Who do you want to be like? Right? Maybe you're doing undergarments. Are you benchmarking with Spanx, or do you think Spanx is too big for you? Then what kind of goals do you have? Like, this is 2023. This is the time when people write their goals. What are you thinking in terms of customer numbers? How many customers do you have today? Maybe you have one. Where do you want to grow to? 10, 15, 20, 300, 10,000? What about turnover? What turnover did you make last year? Hopefully you know, because you should know what turnover you made last year. That's your total sales. Where do you want to grow your total sales to? So you think, well, I can probably do like maybe 20% more. But 20% more cannot be your benchmark, cannot be your dream. If your dream and your target does not scare you, you haven't put a target on. So that's one thing we bankers can tell you. When they give us targets in those days, when they give us targets in the beginning of the year, we're like, problem. We'll sit down and be looking, please, this job is not for me, clearly. This is my last year doing this job. But in the meantime, I have to meet it. And somehow you find yourself surpassing it. And that's because the target was there, foisted on you. Now, you need to be your own challenger to say that if the target you put in front of yourself does not scare you, for all the key metrics, client numbers, production numbers, turnover. Now, when you put a big target for yourself, definitely you face challenges because you're trying to go out of your comfort zone. You're trying to do things you've never done before. You're trying to play with the big boys and the big girls. You think they're just going to leave you and allow you to just walk into their space. You will face challenges. And that is where knowing your why, that I said before, comes in, right? The reason why you are doing this, and that will make you persist. And that is where having a proper structure that allows you to compete with these companies. Because the only difference, if you have a proper structure, the only difference between you and these competitors that are ahead of you would only be their size. It wouldn't be their products. It wouldn't be integrity. It wouldn't be the quality. It will only be size. And then you've given yourself a lot more to work with. But let's assume you have all of these things and you are reaching for the skies. You're going to have to keep faith. You're going to have to be able to tell yourself that today was a bad day. I did not get this pitch, but you come out and gain perspective. I will sit down and I will think about what to do better. But more importantly, I will stay in the game. There's this statistic that says, and I have a mixed feeling about that statistic that says 1 in 3 companies do not last either beyond 5 years or beyond 10 years. I have a different view about it. I think a lot of it may be that the proprietors of those businesses gave up, and that is why they did not last. Not that the circumstances around were so bad that they could not achieve it. And so you need to dare. You need to dare to go out of your comfort zone. And in doing that, you need to persist. I have a wonderful lady here that you can see on your screen, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. I don't think there's any Nigerian, any African, or any Black person, or any woman that is not proud of this woman. Not just because she had a storied career through the World Bank, coming to Nigeria to serve as minister. I think she was minister in three ministries. But the sheer audacity that she had to go for the WTO role, for me, hands down. She's going for a role that a Black person has never held, a woman has never held, an African has never held. She put on a campaign that was so inspiring in its faith and in its audacity to go. And her campaign was very visible. She went to see the people she felt she needed to see. She stood for it. She dared to stand to say, I'm here and I want this role. And she persisted. I remember she started her campaign during the Donald Trump administration. And I didn't think the administration was supportive of her candidature, but she stayed in the role. And things happened. And the new administration came in and she fought and she made it. And I think it's the biggest example to say that really the only thing that can be stopping anybody from doing anything is themselves. Really, it's you decide. You know, if there are many challenges in the sector you have chosen and you want to stop doing the business, you decide. If there are many challenges, but you feel that, well, you know, this is what I'm made of, this is what I'm made for, this is what the world needs, this connects with my why, and I will persist, it's still up to you. You know, I think for me, it is that every single critical advancement in the world, think of it from refrigerators to TVs to transistor radios to smartphones to the microwave, somebody somewhere thought about it, tried hard to do it, networked to get the people, the situations, the knowledge that they needed to deliver it, persisted when there were problems, and ensured that in their lifetimes, those products, those services, those unique innovations were brought to life. And I know that even without seeing you all, that by the fact that you stayed the course on this 5-day boot camp, that you, every single one of you in the room, are that such person. So I wish you all the very best as you navigate your businesses, and I look forward to hearing all your stories from 83 Resources. Thank you very much. The second question is about being a woman in my position. And in the context of having the audacity to dream big, has being a woman limited my dreams? Well, no, that has never limited my dreams, because my dreams are from me. My dreams are set by from the perspective of my why, from perspective of connecting to what I think makes my life a fulfilling one, an impactful one. I think that being a woman in some cases limits people's opportunities and advancement, but never their dreams. Nobody can limit your dream. The biggest thing that you have, in fact, the only thing that you have full control over is your mind and your objectives and your dreams, nothing else. And also your responses, of course, to what happens to you in life. So being female has nothing to do with how big you can dream. For those, I personally didn't experience challenges with advancing my goals. It's not, being female wasn't something that I was very conscious of. It's possible that because I was in the financial sector, which is a lot of a meritocracy, where your results speak for you, not your gender, it was probably easier to navigate. But I know that sometimes in business, one can face certain barriers. The truth is that you just need to get on with it. You can't get mad. You shouldn't bother even focusing on getting even, or except if getting even is ensuring you succeed and showing them you can do it. You may need to jump over more hoops, but that's all about persistence. I talked about persistence. I talked about staying in the game. Staying in the game, the only way you can stay in the game is knowing your why and connecting with it, and knowing that you've put in the work to build with scale, building the right kinds of quality. Every single person and company that wants to buy quality and wants to buy a service that supports them and helps them, right? So if you're the best at what you do, then nobody's going to care that you're a woman. And I think that's what women need to focus on. But that is not to, I do not want to underestimate some of the challenges that women can face, particularly in certain industries which are male dominated. See it as your cross for the next generation. And then we see the first woman, the second woman, and then it then becomes a norm. Nobody talks about it. No longer news because women are there in that industry. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.